Also, Sean, let's dive right into the college football playoff rankings, fresh off the
Hot off the
plate
press
here.
here. Yeah, let's take a look.
Right off the press. And we will start with kind of a surprise. A couple of teams that weren't in the AP poll, but find their way back into the top 25 by the committee. Arizona in at 25, Tulane 24, Georgia Tech hangs in at 23, Pitt back in there 22 with their win over Georgia Tech. SMU at 21, Arizona State 20. Rounding out the rest of the 16 through 20s, Tennessee, Virginia, USC, and Texas falls to 16 despite a victory. Michigan moves ahead of Texas into the 15 spot. And then we have Vanderbilt, Utah, Miami, BYU, and then your top 10, Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Oregon, your top 5 unchanged, Texas Tech, Georgia, Texas A&M, Indiana, and Ohio State. Anything surprise you, Sean?
No. I always think it's good when SMU's good, so I'm happy to see us here. I don't know that I would have vaulted Michigan there, but with a matchup against Ohio State, you want them as high as possible, I suppose. Doesn't really change anything. If they win, they're going to fly up the charts.
Right.
Miami just hanging around. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing super. I'm surprised Utah only moved as low as they did.
Yeah.
I thought they would fall a few more. Well, I wouldn't have been surprised if Michigan had also leapfrogged them and Vanderbilt. I would not have been surprised to see Michigan one away from like a hypothetical top 12 going into that matchup. That's probably the only thing that's surprising to me is, I'm surprised Michigan jumped some teams, but not surprised they didn't just push it farther.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a one of their more convincing victories of the season, albeit on the road at Maryland, but looked to be one of the more complete games they put together, and quite frankly, at the right time. The freshman really freshman heavy team starting. I think.
I guess one thing that just seems odd is like kind of this like spattering of ACC and like smaller conference schools. Like when you get to the bottom 5 to 10. I don't know if it's like we got to have them down here in case they're the highest ranked, variable. I don't know if it's typical. I don't recall. Now Georgia Tech hanging in there. Pitt usually I guess hangs around, but the two lanes. Arizona, good for them, I guess.
Yeah, snuck back in with a big win this past week. Pitt had fallen their way out after the loss to us. They find their way back in with the win over Georgia Tech, who I think was in that 15 or 16 spot.
Yeah.
Last week. So Tech
always a soft spot for the Arizona Wildcats and their I just always think it's good when Arizona's good at anything. You know what I mean? So yeah. I mean, I'm fine with it. I don't see any major surprises. But if we take a look at the playoff, I'm curious to see. I assume that means BYU's still out.
Yeah, BYU and Utah, the first two teams out. So your buys do not change from last week and are basically unchanged except for the 4 spot. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Georgia would have your buys. Tulane, by way of the highest projected non or fifth conference champion, would be your 12 matchup. They get Texas Tech at 5. Your 6-11 matchup, currently Oregon and Miami. So despite all of their complaining, guess what? You're there. Miami! You got it. You're there. Your 7-10 matchup would be Ole Miss taking on Alabama. And your 8-9 matchup would see Notre Dame traveling to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. It's the same matchup we saw last week for Notre Dame, right? Theoretically.
Yes. Yeah. That didn't move. The only thing that moved or any changes were the 5-12, the 6-11, and I think that was it. I think Bama was at 10 last week. So yeah, so no movement there. So not a lot of changes, but Miami would be in this week.
The U versus the O, I guess that's where we're at
It's
here.
the U versus the O, and I think what Cristobal was the former Oregon coach. So going,
I don't know if they call themselves the O, but I think they should.
they should.
I feel like
they should.
I feel like the O, just that's dope. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. So what I think is interesting is for the first time, the committee, when they're kind of ranking teams on the same level as they say it, Notre Dame, Alabama, Miami, BYU, we're all in the same pool. And of course, as you can see, Notre Dame still on the top there. And because that's been the arguing point, Sean, is should Notre Dame be ahead of Miami? Because of course Miami had the head-to-head win.
Right.
Let's remind everybody, a 3-point win now 12 weeks ago,
Right.
at the end of August, where Miami kicked a field goal to take the lead with a minute to go. So it was a back and forth game. And this is a Notre Dame team with a brand new defensive coordinator, a lot of new guys on defense, redshirt freshman quarterback making his first start on the road at night in the rain. It's not about excuses. We lost the game.
Right.
But,
I mean, that's a lot of things that sound like it is, but I don't think that's your point. It's not to make an excuse for the loss. It's simply being like, here's some actual reasons you might have won, besides simply being better that day. Like this may have played into it a skosh,
And what I think it shows too, and not only is Notre Dame ahead of Miami, right? Notre Dame is also still ahead of Alabama, who has a stronger resume by victories.
And I've heard the argument for Alabama there, and I mean I'm not saying they don't have a case. They by all means have some big wins. A win at Georgia that they love to hang their hat on here. You know what I mean? Obviously, but I mean you also have a loss to Florida State. I mean that's not great, and like I understand that it's a top 12 and it's rankings and it hurts our feelings if we don't have a home game and whatever else. But it's always been, there's just some rules in sports that you don't disobey and you try not to fall victim to. You don't bet on baseball and you don't lose football games in late October and November. You can't do it in college football. You have a little bit of give here. And the top 12 has caught Alabama. That net has caught them. Right. And to this point has caught Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You can't drop these bad games late. It's too detrimental. You don't have time to prove that it was an anomaly or that it was just growing pains or it was whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's just the way it is. And so just shut up about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the valuable thing too is they're looking at everything because they look at the fact that Notre Dame lost 12 weeks ago and 11 weeks ago, and since then they have won 9 games in a row. They are winning by 2 to 3 scores on average. They probably closer to 3 or 4 scores after what they did to Syracuse. They're dominating people. They're doing to teams what the SEC and what the top Big Ten and the top Pac-12 teams have done for decades. That's what Notre Dame's doing to their opponents right now. They're absolutely clobbering them. And whether they're a lesser than opponent or not, I mean, Pitt, we can disagree if Pitt should be ranked or not. Maybe they shouldn't be because the ACC is not very good. But it's a win over a top 10, a top ranked opponent. When you look at the top 25, Notre Dame has beaten USC as well. So they've beaten 2 ranked opponents. They've, again, lost by 4 points to the top 2 of the top 11 teams in the country, including one that's sitting with a bye week. So when you look at the whole resume, yes, there's 2 losses there, but there are also a lot of really good wins. And that's what the committee recognizes. And they recognize.
Well, I heard someone going off about a strength of schedule. Like, we heard the committee was going to factor in strength of schedule and how you look at Alabama with wins over Tennessee and wins over this. And like they're tracking down the wins, and they're like, Notre Dame doesn't have any. They're like, we'll give you maybe USC, but watching Notre Dame come out and just pummel a bunch of high school teams was like this argument on the radio I was listening to. I almost turned it off, but it was just this person trying to like sell how bad the rankings are because Notre Dame is there, because it's a sleepy season against bad opponents. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, you're not tearing down any of these other teams either. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Ohio Alabama's State gone through the gauntlet, but I don't know that Georgia necessarily has. You know, they've played Alabama and lost. You know, people, and what killed me is they were like tearing down Notre Dame's strength of schedule, but then like praising Alabama for wins at Missouri and Vanderbilt. And I'm like, okay, look, that's no different than Pitt or USC. Like it's probably worse because Vanderbilt's just inflated because they're not playing a great chunk of these awesome. Right, and they're not playing the best of the best in the SEC, and are just kind of like, we have an SEC schedule. No, you don't. There is no SEC schedule anymore. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia's best win is Ole Miss, so you know, give them
that's a solid one. Take that.
But yeah, they have a loss to Alabama. Ohio State hasn't played anybody.
No, absolutely zero.
Like, if you want to talk resume, and quite frankly, neither really has Indiana. I mean, they beat Oregon.
People talk Texas for a while, and nobody mentions that anymore.
Right, like Texas was ranked number 1. Cool. Preseason rankings never.
Right. I think that's one where everybody's just been. Well, we had that wrong.
Right.
Oops.
And then since then, the only team that was even ranked when they played them was Illinois, who has not been seen in the rankings since before Halloween. So,
well, and I've heard people still talk. It's like, well, they had that big win at Penn State. Like, I'm like, no, you can't. You don't get.
No, yeah, no.
Like, I understand that that's a rivalry question mark, and that Penn State was also ranked fairly high at the beginning. But like, no one's going to talk about this season for Ohio State the way people do. Like when Notre Dame sets their schedule 5-6 years out,
right?
And it has solid opponents. Like when they're like, all right, Clemson, you know, and then like Clemson just has like 4 crummy years.
Right, like Notre Dame sets a 10.
And everybody's like, oh, you guys don't schedule anybody. You know, like
the bottom falls out.
You know, we did it with Virginia Tech for 2 years where we scheduled them and then they just fell into the toilet for those, you know, it wasn't the opponent we thought it was going to, but you can't change it. It's not like you can like be like, well, this team's not good anymore. Can we switch that? You can't. It's contract.
Well, last year, Notre Dame was supposed to play Miami, and Miami backed out right before the season. So, you know, we can't control what other teams do. We can only control what we do, and obviously we're winning a lot of games. But yeah, I mean, and again, these are going to shake up again. The number 3 team plays the number 16 team. The number 1 team plays the number 15 team. We're literally about to preview 6 games. Of team. I think it's the most we've done this year so far.
It's a lot.
2 teams in the top 25 that are going head to head. And maybe there won't be any upsets. Maybe there won't be any. We'll come back next week. Everything will be chalk.
Right here where we are. Yeah.
We'll be basically right back here where we started from. But if this season has told me anything, that's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah, no.
That's probably not going to be the case. Any other thoughts on this week's rankings? Sure.
Well, the interesting thing that'll really fire them up is if one team ahead of Notre Dame crumbles, then Miami and everybody else is going to get real loud because Notre Dame, presumably, if they slide up, go from traveling somewhere and playing a first-round playoff game to hosting a first-round playoff game, and I think people will lose their minds, and I look forward to it. Yes. I think it's going to be a real fun show, and don't worry, guys. I promise. I mean, I can't promise for both of us, but to the listeners out there, if the rankings stay pretty much the same, we'll try not to repeat this Notre Dame conversation next week. We'll try to just it'll probably be a very fast.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, if it doesn't shift, we promise not to dwell on things. But we got some nerves have been struck, and we
had some airings of grievances.
We got to get this stuff
We got
out.
some Festivus airing of grievances out early.
Right.
I think the 2 matchups, and it'll kind of help transition us to previewing the matchups. I think the ones that could potentially have the most impact on what we see with these rankings next week. In terms of volatility, obviously, if Pitt beats Miami, Miami's done for. But the ones that could create the most volatility in these rankings next week is Texas A&M, Texas, and Ohio State, Michigan, because those would be upset victories over two of the top three teams, and you want to light the fuse on craziness. That's how you really do it.
I still feel like Texas is the more, I don't want to say more likely, but definitely a just one of those things that feels like it should happen.